In the heart of a city that never sleeps, where neon signs bleed into rain-slicked streets, there exists a place that shouldn't exist. Not on any map, not in any guidebook. It's a bookstore. But not like the others. This one doesn't sell stories, it steals them. And the thief? The shop itself. Welcome to the echo chamber. Gentle rain on pavement, distant city hum, the soft tick-tick-tick of an old clock. Its sign, carved from aged oak and barely visible beneath the dripping eaves of a crumbling brick building, reads simply, "The Echo Chamber." No hours, no name, just a single brass bell above the door that chimes with a sound like a sigh. The air around it hangs differently, thicker, quieter, smelling not of paper and ink, but of old dust and something else. Something like the ghost of a forgotten scent, a half-remembered melody. A soft, melancholic ding as the brass bell chimes. Maya, a young librarian with eyes shadowed by too many late nights and the quiet grief of a mother lost 2 years ago, found herself drawn there one rain-lashed Tuesday. She wasn't looking for magic. She was looking for solace, a place to sit, to read, to feel the weight of stories without the weight of her own. The shop's window displayed no titles, only rows of empty leather-bound books on a dusty shelf. But the door was ajar. A faint, warm light spilled out. The door closes softly behind her, the ding muffled. Inside, the city noise vanished. The air hummed with a low, resonant thrum, like the vibration of a plucked cello string. The space was impossibly deep for its frontage. Shelves stretched into shadowy gloom, crammed with books of every size and colour, their spines worn smooth. But the real books weren't the ones on the shelves. They were the shadows they cast, and the sound they made. A gentle, almost imperceptible whispering, not words, but the feeling of words, like pages turning in a breeze. A soft, dry rustle, like a page turning. Maya drifted past shelves, her fingers trailing over spines. She paused at a book titled Whispers of the Rose Garden. It felt warm, too warm. As she opened it, a single, sharp scent flooded her senses. Not the scent of roses, but the memory of her mother's perfume, Chanel No. 5, the scent that clung to the last scarf she'd worn before the hospital. A wave of pure, aching love washed over her. The whispering intensifies slightly, then a single clear tick like a clock striking. But the memory shivered. The scent of Chanel faded, replaced by the dusty smell of old paper. The image of her mother in the garden blurred, like a photograph left in the rain. Maya gasped, clutching the book tighter. The words on the page were her mother's voice, but they weren't her mother's words. They were borrowed words, words from someone else's memory, woven into the story. No, that's not. I remember her saying, "The roses are blooming, Maya, just like your father loved them." Not, "The roses are blooming, darling, just like your father loved them." Her voice, her exact words. A low, resonant hum fills the air, seeming to emanate from the books themselves. The shop wasn't stealing the story of the memory. It was replacing the specific, personal details with the generic, borrowed emotional resonance. The feeling of the memory was preserved, but the specificity, the unique, irreplaceable what and who, was erased and replaced with a palatable, generic echo. A memory of a mother's love, but not her mother's love. A memory of a garden, but not her garden, but not her garden. The horror was elegant, insidious. It didn't destroy the memory, it replaced the unique data with a common template, leaving the emotional core intact, but the meaning hollowed out. The whispering becomes a soft, collective murmur, like a crowd of people speaking just below hearing. "Stop, please, I need to remember her voice, her last words." Her last words. The words she'd been trying to hold on to, the words that felt like the only thing keeping her mother alive in her mind. She'd rehearsed them 1,000 times. "The roses are blooming, Maya, just like your father loved them." The words that were hers, spoken by her, in the final fragile moment. She reached for the book, Whispers of the Rose Garden, her fingers trembling. A sharp, crystalline ping, like a dropped crystal glass. The book shivered. The words on the page dissolved, replaced by a new, perfectly formed sentence. "The roses are blooming, darling, just like your father loved them." and Maya felt it. The specific aching memory of her mother's final weak breath, her hand holding Maya's, the exact words, they weren't just gone, they were erased. Replaced by the generic echo of a stranger's memory, a memory the shop had pulled from somewhere else, perhaps from the mind of a woman who'd also lost a mother, who'd also clung to the feeling of a rose garden. The shop didn't take the memory, it substituted it with a more readily available, emotionally resonant copy from its vast, silent library of stolen moments. A heavy, final thud, as if a door closes inside her head. The roses are blooming, just like your father loved them. The whispering stops abruptly. The resonant hum fades to silence. Only the gentle tick-tick-tick of the clock remains. The grief was still there, the feeling of loss. But the specificity, the unique, painful, beautiful details that made her mother hers, was gone, replaced, erased. She looked around the shop, not with awe, but with dawning, icy horror. This wasn't a place to find solace. It was a place to lose yourself. The shop wasn't a thief of things. It was a thief of meaning. It stole the why and who of your most precious memories, leaving only the what, the generic, shared human feeling. It was the ultimate act of emotional homogenization. A soft, dry rustle from the shelves, the sound of many pages turning simultaneously. Maya stumbled back towards the door, the book falling from her numb fingers. She didn't look back. She pushed through the door, the rain hitting her face like cold needles, a sharp, real sensation. She ran, not towards her apartment, but towards the only place she thought might hold real memory, the small, overgrown rose garden behind her building, the real garden her mother had tended, the real place where she'd said those words. Rain intensifies, footsteps on wet pavement, a ragged gasp. The roses are blooming just like your father loved them. No, no, it was her voice, her words, a garden. Why can't I remember the sound, the exact sound? A single perfect rose petal falls from a bush onto the wet ground with a soft plink. She stopped, trembling, staring at the roses. They were blooming, just as they always did. But the memory of her mother's final words, the specific sound, the exact cadence, it was gone, replaced by the shop's perfect generic echo. The horror wasn't just the loss of the memory, it was the realization that the shop had done it. It had chosen to give her a memory that wasn't hers, but was emotionally similar, and it had erased the one that was. It had made her forget what was uniquely hers to preserve a more marketable, less painful echo. The shop didn't want her grief, it wanted the feeling of grief, packaged neatly for consumption. The distant, distorted ding of the brass bell from the shop, muffled by the rain. Maya didn't go back to the echo chamber. She couldn't. But she did go to the garden every day. She sat by the roses, trying to feel the memory, to hear the words. And sometimes, in the quiet of the garden, she'd hear a faint, almost imperceptible whisper on the breeze. "The roses are blooming, darling, just like your father loved them." It wasn't her mother's voice. It was the echo the shop had left behind. A haunting reminder of the theft, not of the memory, but of the absence where the memory should be. The shop hadn't just taken a memory, it had replaced the unique, irreplaceable story of her relationship with her mother with a generic, borrowed, emotional template. The true horror wasn't the loss of the words, it was the certainty that the shop had deliberately chosen the less specific, more universal echo to fill the void, making the loss feel less painful, but infinitely more permanent. Gentle wind through rose bushes, the tick-tick-tick of the clock from earlier, now faintly echoing. So, the next time you find yourself in a quiet bookstore, surrounded by the scent of paper and ink, pause, listen. Not just for the sound of turning pages, but for the absence of a specific personal whisper. Because in the quiet corners of the world, where stories live and memories are kept, there are places that don't just hold stories, they steal the very essence of what makes them yours. They take your most precious memories, the ones that define your heart, and replace them with a smooth, familiar echo. They leave you with a feeling of love, but not the sound of the voice that spoke it. And that is the true, chilling theft, not of the story, but of the soul within it. The echo chamber doesn't just sell books. It sells emptiness wrapped in the comforting scent of forgotten things. And the most terrifying part, it's always waiting for the next person who needs a little quiet, a little solace, and doesn't realize they're about to lose the only thing that makes the silence meaningful. Final, soft ding of the brass bell, fading into the gentle tick-tick-tick of the clock. Then silence. Remember the sound, not just the echo, because the silence after the echo is the loudest sound of all.